Event management and live marketing originated somewhere in the early 90s. Uh, More and more brands and products understood the power of immersive and intrusive communication. An industry which actually looked at as an additional line item on most marketing and brand communication budgets rose to become a $1,500 billion industry globally, as per the figures of Meeting Planners Institute USA. Today, it's the fastest growing industry in the communication business after digital marketing, and the consumption for live events, experiential and phygital events is on the rise. The recent example of I for India, an online event, raised 52 crores for the COVID pandemic. And as of last count, this was money that was still growing on and on. So a ground event that has been converted due to social distancing and which has still got artists, performers, technicians, and event professionals to come together to create content that was beamed across the globe on an online platform is a classic example of integration of physical events and digital. So that brings me to the question on the premise of saying, how has the industry evolved so rapidly? What are the markers that have accelerated and brought growth? How has the industry adapted to changes in technological upgrades even before the virus hit us? Even now with the pandemic, how are agencies able to evolve and deliver great impactful communication where other forms of communication like print, radio, television are still trying to find their feet on the ground? The answer to this is education. Event education and learning from the industry has been the source of the vast amount of intellectual wealth that today, which can be called as the flag bearers or future trend leaders of the industry are carrying. I'm very proud to share this platform with two such panelists who have learned, earned, and built a formidable place for themselves in the event industry today and lead business verticals in their companies that have contributed in a big way to the growth of their respective agencies. Welcome, Saurabh and Subhashini.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this forum. You would be happy to know that Subhashini is a math scholar who has chosen events out of the blue to make a career out there. And both Saurabh and Subhashini are my students from many moons ago, who today are far ahead of me in the development change of events. So I'm really proud to be here with them on this panel. So thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's our pleasure.
So Saurabh and Subhu, and I'll call you Subhu because that's more comfortable. How and why did you choose a vocational subject like event management for education? What drove you to buy into this career of event management? We can start with ladies first. So Subhu, you go first and then Saurabh.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. I think it's an absolute delight and it's always a pleasure to connect back with professors, especially. Like you said, I was no math scholar, but yes, I was a math graduate. And from there to now, it's been a huge leap. But I think what got me really excited about it is, I think like a lot of people would typically say it was, events then in school and college. But what tipped the balance for me was when I had to find something to do during my holidays to keep myself busy, which was part of our college curriculum. And I chose to dabble in television news production and public relations. That then got me to do a stint with a PR firm, and then I wanted to study some more. So I went on to do a master's in public relations and event management. And it so happened that Martin was also one of my professors then. And I got hired out of college, and I think the rest of it is here. What I love about this is the fact that we can take something so simple and create so much magic out of it. I think that's why event management, and I think, yeah.
Saurabh, your story.
Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for having us. I think 15 years back when we started with event education, we were actually the first generation who were actually studying in School of Events, right? We were the first or the second batch that came out. So even when we were planning to do at that point of time, event industry was known, but only to the people within the industry. Outside of it, people knew it. Okay, there is event management, but do you want to study for it? That was a big question. So people actually told us that, why do you want to study event management? Go do some events. It's quick learning. Go on the job, learn something, get the knack of it, and you'll be able to do it. But today, 15 years later, we are so glad that we didn't listen to those people, and we actually persuaded to join into a event education course that actually equipped us to do a lot more than what others who didn't do at that point of time. We had that advantage over them. It was like, the logical thinking that we had always was the event industry was growing. The demand of events was increasing. So, if corporates are doing, associations are doing, whoever wants to do events, they want to engage with skilled professionals. And if the demand of event increases, so is the supply of, skilled professionals will increase. That means you will need talent pool of people who've learned the entire thing. They've got equipped with doing better events. And that's where the entire scope and the logical reasoning happens, saying we need to go through a formal education study. We don't want to be someone who just on the fly operates and does events. Learn the basics, learn the method, and you will always be a step ahead than the others. And fortunately, that's what worked for us even at that point of time.
Amazing. Again, I have a question for you, Saurabh.
Yeah.
So you've traversed this journey from sports management and then your stint at Network 18 and building that whole game at Laqshya, and today you lead from the front. So when you're hiring young students from event schools, what is the criteria that you look for them when you're hiring them? If I have to do a checkbox tick mark to say, these are the qualifications that I need, what does it take to get into Laqshya Live and make the grade? Or for that matter, for any event agency, what would you say are the key boxes that I need to check and tick if I need to make the grade to qualify?
So like I was saying, earlier, since we were the first batch, generation of people who've learned event education, a lot of us are now at positions where we hire. So at that point of time, you always look out for people who've also given that kind of background. So you will look out for people who've done event education, because that's how the norm in the industry then changes, right? Especially when it comes to students at Laqshya and as a management team, we actually believe to hire from the bottom. We believe that fresh talent within the industry is the best way to grow your company as well. Yes, you can't replace experience, but it's always good to have a mix of both. But the bottom line is the bottom base of a company are going to be the future leaders. So that's been the core strategy for hiring. Now, when we come down to actually meeting up with a lot of students who come for interviews, there are few things that we feel that they all should follow like a checklist and say, okay, these 6-7 things should always be there in every student that you see. Right from the start is something like we need a spark. We need to see that one spark in that person saying, okay, he or she can do something different. And that spark normally comes out of your personality when you are talking. So you get that thing. The second thing is passion. I mean, if you're not passionate about doing events, you will never be able to succeed. You will never be able to do what you want to do. All of us have been striving on this passion thing that is there. Even with the current environment that's happening, what is keeping us alive and ticking is the passion to do more. May not be physical events right now, but virtual events. So, it's still the passion that is driving us. We also kind of sometimes, look at what knowledge that person is. So if the person has come from an event education background, that means he or she should be knowledgeable about weddings, about sports, about, corporate events, about festivals. Some base knowledge should always be there. How updated they are on the current trends, what's kicking in right now, what is the best, what's the trending thing, they should be updated. Overall communication skills, the way they present themselves, personality, that becomes a key thing, because events, the entire industry is a very people to people industry, right? You meet a lot of clients, you meet a lot of artists, talent every day. So that it's very important that you can strike conversations with people. That is important. How do you handle stress? That's one thing that, people, because stress management is one important part in our industry because of the clients, deadlines, the pressure, all of that. So that becomes an important part of how or she, the student delivers that. Also, how different are you doing if you have to send in your resume, for example? I remember like a couple of years back, we received a resume, which was a video resume. The person didn't have anything written on it. It was just a video file and we played. And because obviously she was a student, she didn't have any professional experience, but she spoke about her hobby. She spoke about why she wants to do events. She spoke, and it was just eyes closed. We wanted to meet her the next time. And actually we ended up hiring her, and she turned out to be a great resource within the team. So that's what worked, right? She tried to do something different. And lastly, when you come for an interview, try and leave an experience behind, because events is all about creating experiences. So even if it's a first interview of yours, treat it like an event. Treat that when I move out of that cabin and office, I need to leave behind an experience for the person. So if these combinations are worked upon, I think that's the best way to approach this.
So passion, being updated, creating the trend, thinking out of the box, these are fundamental attributes that will drive you towards a successful career. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, absolutely.
So that brings me to my, in fact, I wanted to tell you that, mental stress is one of the things that has been on the minds of many event companies, and including myself, and I was practicing events for the last 24 years. So we have at Whistling Woods made a conscious decision to build an entire subject on, stress management and mental health as a part of the curriculum, to be able to make students and prospects understand how it's important to handle work-life balance as a part of the overall perspective. So, so we are trying to check those tick boxes there. But there is a pertinent question that I especially want to ask Subbu. What do they don't teach at event schools? What have you found lacking in event education space? And what do you think are the gaps that need to be plugged, given the context of the work that you've put in, in the last decade and a half, and going forward, where you keep meeting young people coming to you and, working with you? What are the gaps that you see in the business, especially as far as education is concerned?
Sure. It's actually, I'm going to go back to what you said, but just before that, when kids join events, they join for one of two reasons, because they get so excited. They see everything. They're like, oh my God, they see stars. It's all big rose-colored glasses. They're just fascinated by the grandeur of it. Or they've been in college, they've done it at some level, and they want to do more. But what's happening a lot these days is our industry is so dynamic, and it's actually so demanding off of us. Mostly physically, but then there's just also so much mental and emotional demand that it asks of us. That's the nature of our industry. So it's really interesting that you said that you're running a course in a separate subject for mental health, because that is something that I wish more people came equipped with, because our industry is not all rosy. It can take a toll on you both mentally and physically. So it's really important for you not just to be able to handle events, but to be able to handle situations. Like, how do you handle a crisis, right? Like, what happens? Like, something could go wrong. What do you do then? Like, do you panic? Do you just pause and freeze? Or, how do you address it? Or, there could be something pressing at home, but you're not able to put that aside when you come to work, or, the other way around. And it's really, really important that people are, taught those softer, the more human aspects of what our industry is. I think, and that's not what we were taught. We've pretty much learned on the job, and it's nice because a lot of kids these days want to do what we've taken 10 years to do. They want to do in like maybe a year and a half or two. So there's just that much more that, they have to risk as well. So this is something that I really wish that, they come equipped to learn and handle.
And these kind of subjects were never there when we learned.
Exactly.
Events. So it's a great thing if students are getting an opportunity to learn this now, because it's very, very relevant in the current times.
In fact, I want to ask you, do you guys know how to do CPR?
No.
Thankfully, I haven't seen it, but yeah.
No, so recently we had, about a couple of years ago, there was an accident on an event of ours, and the sound engineer was standing next to me, got a cardiac arrest, and I didn't know what to do with him. I still don't. And luckily for me, there was a hospital close by. We took him there. But that took me to a point to say that, safety, health, and wellness of people, not only just the audience, but people who run the show, is also important. as an event manager, you need to understand health and safety more paramountly than anything else. So again, as a conscious effort, there's a need now to introduce health and safety as a part of thing. We actually teach CPR in the school as a part of the subject. Again, it's a credit that they need to do. But this going forward is the thought process. And now with the pandemic, it's even more important to talk about social distancing. It's important to talk about. So the conscious effort is that while there is a whole bunch of things that students need to learn as far as the event school is concerned, in terms of holistic subjects, there is also life lessons which need to be incorporated, because we are a people management business, and that's eventually what needs to go out there more importantly than the holistic part, which I'm sure you also learned in your agency more lucidly and more intensively than what you learned in school.
Yeah, absolutely.
So over the last decade, we've seen more and more specialist event agencies coming up. There are retail event companies, there are IT event companies, there are those specialized lifestyle companies like Subbu, your company. I know when we had a conversation, Martin, 2 weeks back, he said, we have established ourselves as a luxury event management company in not so many words, but that was a trend. So my question to you, Subbu, is that, and then I'll come back to you, Saurabh, on this one also, is that what are the trend maker roles? What are the new norms of specialization, especially keeping our current scenario in mind, required by event agencies? And likewise, when clients are selecting event companies, what kind of engagement are they looking at, or what kind of specialists are they looking at when they are looking at evolving their businesses and coming to you for communication needs?
Sure. So I actually have a twofold answer, right? One of it is more about the recent scenario of what the trend was, and then the absolute current scenario. So more recently, what clients have been wanting to do more and more is to create IPs, is to actually create ideas and own them, not just as a title of sponsorship, but as an idea that they believe in because of their brand philosophy or their personality, or just because of what they stand for. So I think the trend more recently has been that rather than doing an event for an audience or riding on some other event that's happening, create one of your own, which means IPs, IP creation, IP curation was a very, very key way to handle the more recent requirements of clients. I actually have a very interesting example to show you of how this happened for us recently. So if I can just show you a quick video of something that we did, and very interestingly, this was done in the space of food. This is about the Isuzu X Food Festival. So while you take a look at the video, I can just actually take you through a couple of things that was very unique to this event.
So I'll do that for you.
Thanks. Okay. This is actually called the Isuzu X Food Festival, and what's really, really interesting about this is the fact that this came about as a at first glance, all it looks like is like a food festival, but it wasn't. The idea stemmed from the fact that we wanted to talk about adventure food. It was about travel. It was about what the brand stood for, Isuzu as a brand, and about the fact that they came to us with an ask then, and we were passionately sort of invested in the cause of creating interesting content when it came to food, when it came to what this festival should stand for. So what you see are actually the festival was twofold, right? It spoke all about food. It spoke about adventurous food across the country, some amazing places that we could bring this food from, and it also spoke about the brand's inherent reason to associate with this cause. Maybe we can just watch a little bit of it with the audio, so it might give you a feel of what the spirit there was. It was all about communities, it was coming together. It was about eating food. It was about having a good time. It was about celebration. It was about good food, good music.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
sorry, like I was saying, that was just more before all this happened. But in the now, actually, the real ask for now is the fact that everything needs to be more virtual, because the possibility of having physical events is almost next to none. It's really slim. It is going to come back because nothing replaces it. But currently, what the real ask now is virtual events. Clients want us to do events that can be viewed digitally. Conferences that are happening online. You have events, entire launches that are happening online. So I think that's the current trend, and I think it's gonna be all about virtual and hybrid events going forward, at least for the next couple of months. Still, it's a safe space for us to be with each other, the social distancing norms in mind or not. Yeah.
So Saurabh, can you actually identify and extend what Subhu said to say, can you identify specific careers that you would point out which could evolve in the current scenario that we are in, and going forward, of course, with hybrid events becoming more a part of our lifestyle as far as event companies are concerned? Do you have any pinpointed key responsibilities or roles within agencies that would evolve and which people need to master because there is a dearth and a need for them in the industry?
So yes, definitely. I think what Subhu also rightly said, if the same question you would have asked us in 2019, it would have had a different answer. Today, with what's happening around us, the world's changing. I mean, none of us have ever, experienced this kind of a thing of getting locked down into houses, but still work needs to be on. Nobody's experienced this ever. So what was relevant 3 months back is not relevant today. What is relevant today may again change in 6 months down the line. So especially for students, and what we kind of draw one analogy which says that learn, unlearn, and relearn. Learn the new trends that is happening, learn what is required right now for the industry, unlearn some of the stuff. Like we've learned some things 10 years back, they are not relevant in today's time. So you need to unlearn that during that process. And lastly, relearn. So some of the things that was relevant there in the previous years may be relevant today, but needs to be tweaked to the way it's done. That's why it's relearned, right? Because you're not completely removing that off, but you are changing the gear into something else. So that's exactly what's happening. Event agencies are now redefining their approach. We know physical events may not happen until Jan. You never know how things are going to go. Virtual events are on the rise. More and more clients, some festivals, or some of them have already happened virtually. So, if you do that, you will need a different skill set for that. None of us were born to do these kind of stuff, right? We all learn events in this physical environment, but now each one is learning every day some new stuff. So there's a different skill set that is required. So you need, again, if there are curriculums which can teach you all of these things, it will just equip the students better when they join, because this will be the new normal. It is going to give you a shape of, phygital events that you said in the start. There will be physical events, but digital will still shape their entire process of how you do that event. There are a lot of stuff like when you're doing virtual events, content is one big thing that will always be there. It was always big during physical, but in virtual, it will double up. So if students really want to learn video production, they want to learn how to make AVs, those are all going to help. Content of writing, copies, creatives, these are all stuff that will now increase more while you're doing virtual events. And then understanding a bit of digital, understanding how to market an online event. It's very different from marketing a physical event. You create an IP. How do you market an IP which you're going to do an on ground for 2,000 people? Or how do you market an IP where 2,000 people are just going to join virtually and view an event? So skill sets will change. People need to adapt to what is going to happen. Safety, security is going to increase big time. Social distancing is not going to go so early. So even if physical events happen, you will have to go through a process of ensuring what are the safety norms that you've kept in the event, what are the hygiene norms you've gone through. So these are all new things that people will now need to learn, because this will become the new normal going forward.
So that actually brings me to a question by one of the students on this webinar. There is a student called Rachit who says that does a student actually need to be updated with new technology? The answer is simply yes. Technology keeps getting upgraded, and we will have to, going forward, every year, every school worth its salt will have to teach the latest, because that's what is going to be accepted by the industry as the norm for, acceptance. As Saurabh rightly pointed out, that there is a need to keep updating yourself. It's been a policy at Whistling Woods that we actually get students involved. And Saurabh, you'll be happy to know that our students are actually doing a webinar hosting on as a part of the assignment in the School of Media and Communication. And, the whole concept is to simulate what actually we are doing right now on a day-to-day basis for our clients. So that's been the trend. But that again brings me to one more question, because there are lots of people who come from towns where, English has not been a primary language. And people may not be very conversant in speaking with English. So there's a question from someone on the panel here, which says that, is English an important aspect required to enter into this business?
So, I mean, I could take that if you want.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So there are two things to this. Earlier, it was fairly clear about how you define roles, right? You had client servicing and you had production, and there were certain accepted norms for a client servicing person in terms of must-haves, and a production guy of could-haves, may not have. It's all right. In today's time and age, while I will say that it's very difficult to say English is not needed and you can still survive. What English actually does do for you is that it actually opens up more opportunity. Chances are that if you're more conversant in the language, chances are if you're more comfortable in the language, communicating with the kind of people that you communicate with just sort of widens. It's not to say that you can't succeed if you don't know the language. It's just that the amount of opportunity that could be extended to you could be a lot more. You could still be one of the best operators of technical equipment. You could be one of the best DOPs the industry's ever seen. I know some people who are fantastic at their job, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they come with the background of being able to be very well spoken. But in today's time and age, when clients are all becoming global, we're starting to work with, a plethora of vendors who are not just in the country, but outside of the country. It surely aids in communication. It just helps you present a better picture of yourself, because at least English is more universally acceptable than Hindi, unfortunately. That's what.
Don't you think, Subbu, that especially in social events, especially in the wedding business, or for that matter, in the other spaces like the exhibition industry or the retail industry, where there is more on-ground build-up, people could still make do with, not knowing English so fluently and still being able to do good business?
Absolutely. So there are opportunities, right? You could be somebody who speaks, like, let's say, Gujarati really well. You could survive very well in that community. I mean, there's a lot of scope there. So it's not just about knowing the language. It's about what you do after knowing the language. I might be the best spoken person around here, but if I don't know what to do with my English language and I'm quite not so good or crap at what I do, then it doesn't really help that I have that edge.
So my question to Saurabh now is that, what would you advise a student who's entering an event school? What does he need to learn mandatorily from there? What is hygiene? What is the most required? So what kind of subjects or what kind of things he needs to pick up from a classroom, essentially when he's looking at a theory or staring, at a session in a classroom in his face? What is that few things that you would want him to take away?
So, I strongly believe, and I always tell a lot of students who join our organization in the first, as soon as they pass out of a school, is that the first couple of years, it's only learning. Learn whatever you can. Don't, in your mind, compartmentalize saying, I only want to do client servicing. I'm only a production person. Yes, you can specialize into that a couple of years later once you've had some good experience. But in the start, learn everything. So even when you're at the event school, try not to see, okay, I'm only going to learn production lectures. I will only attend technical lectures because I just want to be there. Never do that. Knowledge is something that you need to know every aspect of the business. try and, when you're listening to lectures, try and see the thinking process on why this event happened. Don't look at it just from how it happened from the execution perspective, but try and see if example, if it's a brand led event, why the brand did that, what was the logic behind doing that, because that is what is going to help you when you actually start planning these events. Look at how presentations are made, because be it a sporting event, be it an exhibition, be it a wedding that you plan or a corporate event that you do, you're selling an idea, right? How will you sell it? You need some medium. So PowerPoint presentation is like a bread and butter for people in the industry. They need to operate, know how to do that. So if you're thinking of client servicing, see how to make nice PowerPoint presentation, learn those arts, see different presentations that are shown in the school, learn that entire thing completely. One important part is when you learn about vendors, suppliers, how costings are done for an event. See what is the requisite to, what is the thing that you send, because what you send to your suppliers is what gets delivered at the event. So learn that art of making a cost sheet, making the element sheet that needs to go to any particular supplier. Checklist. That's the only thing you can never go wrong if your checklist is correct from start to finish. So learn that art. Network with the people, with your peers in school, network with your professors, network with whoever is the visiting faculty that come in. Read a lot, understand brands at a certain level. So these are the 8 things that they should always look out for. Things that are, I wouldn't say hygiene and mandate. I'd say all of these are mandate in the initial couple of years of your career. It's just later is when you specialize into one thing, is when you can add a lot more effort into learning those specific things. But learning as much as possible from in the year of education, that's like, I think, the bottom line of this.
So there has been a question for actually me. I'm a little taken aback by this one, but yeah. So there is one question which says the ability to think on your feet, be a problem solver, and also think fast is a key driver to hiring. How, as an institute, would you build that in your students? So content creation and content marketing is an integral part of any event education module. We teach that as a simulated session. So Whistling Woods on its own has about more than about 12 schools, and each school organizes their own in-house events. Our students produce them. So we have Ayana, which is our internal fashion show, which happens with the top choreographers and the top fashion models of the industry, and our students actually produce it from scratch. We have our own festival called Inbox, which we actually produce. It's a full week-long festival, so our students produce it. We have an animation exhibition, which is done by the animation school. Our students actually produce it. So as a campus, cohesively, we have evolved. And in fact, that's my question to Subhu in the next. We have our own virtual lab per se. We have our own production studios. We have our own video editing studios where we teach the event student how to produce pre and post production videos for the events that they do. We have our own music labs to teach them how to produce music, which is an integral part of events that we do. So going forward, when we are looking at education and hygiene as a part of the whole learning per se, where does this help in creating better professionals? While a lot of learning comes on the job and traditional methods of event education in the past, do you think these kind of simulations are best practices for creating better professionals? And what will this help in terms of evolving careers?
First of all, I think the fact that somebody has access to all of those at one place, I think it's very, very exciting. Having said that, just going back to what Saurabh and I mentioned a little while ago, the fact is that in the now, what you're teaching becomes extremely, extremely relevant. Because going forward, the ability to be able to even conceptualize, or the ability to be able to produce a virtual event, the ability to be able to think on your feet and come up with ideas, come up with solutions to clients for their brand ask, is moving away from conventional forms of event management to be able to do something that's a little more cohesive. And I think just the fact that we're able to enhance their knowledge base and able to teach them so much more than just event management in its physical form, I think it's extremely relevant, and I think it's going to hugely help. It's never going to be outdated because we're never going to run out of the need to integrate a digital sort of element into any event that we do now or later in the future. So yeah, I'm a big yes for the simulated learning environment. And I think it's, like I said, the fact that we can keep updating what we teach, it'll never be irrelevant.
So Saurabh, that the question that now comes to you is that we all know that students from event schools will go to event management companies, and that's been a standard operating procedure for most of us in our generations that have happened so far. But given the way our businesses are evolving, given the way the entertainment business is evolving, do you see an option for a student with a particular skill set? For example, I have an art student. I have majored, in fine arts, and I'm coming to an event school and learning event management. Is there a possibility to use my dual skill sets and then evolve into a better career? Can you suggest to our students here what kind of other careers they could go out of the box and think when it comes to event management education?
Yeah, sure. The very point that you're asking this question just shows that our industry is kind of evolved so much that we are not restricting our careers now only to event agencies, but the entire event professional skill is used with by other industries as well. So, for example, if you really learn technicals well in your industry, you understand lighting, you understand how to do sound, designing lights, you can actually become a technical producer for a big theater company. You could run live shows over there. So you are not employed by a event management agency, but you're employed by a theater. Uh, you can actually join. For example, there are so many sports arenas that is coming up right now. All of them need event professionals, not only from an agency perspective, but from a core team perspective to run the business of a stadium. Only an event professional understands what happens when you hire a venue, what are the do's and don'ts that are required to be done at an event or at a venue, how to market that venue to event agencies and to bigger events, especially. So they always need that talent. Then there are government people are also hiring a lot of event professionals because the amount of events that government does every second day. I mean, our prime minister is well known to be the great marketer of India, so he obviously tends to do events every second month, and that's where he has a team who coordinates with event agency. There are again event professionals hired there. There are so many clients who have their in-house events team. Yes, they engage with event agencies, but they need event professionals because the volume of business is so much. Like I was saying, I have a small video to be shown in a case for where we did an event with a mall. Now, mall also, for example, large groups. This was Ambience Mall in Gurgaon. They're a big corporate-owned Ambience Mall, one of the biggest malls in Gurgaon. They have a 5-member events team at that point who's hired, who actually deal with event agencies who come there and do shows, activations, because it needs they need. Even if I'm talking to somebody, if I have a large setup that needs to be done, I need the opposite person to understand my requirements. An event professional will understand that. So I'm just going to quickly show one video here.
Yes.
So this was the YouTube Fan Fest that we had done in Gurgaon, in Ambience Mall, and in Hyderabad. We had 1 lakh people over 3 days. This is a parallel industry that is being built. We had Bollywood shows happening in the mall, but the crowd was all yours because of the entire fan base that is being built for creators. So what we needed was the mall to, and it was not a ticketed show. It was a free for all show because we were taking creators talent on ground to people. Now big guys like Bhuvan Bam, all those people were there performing. So imagine the crowd that was there. Imagine the coordination that could have gone through with the mall team, the security points, entry, exit, all of that. There were so many things that we had to plan because this was a live show with people across age groups. Whoever who is entering the mall can come and see the show. There were shops in the mall that still had to continue doing regular business. So all of this wouldn't have been possible if the mall team didn't have event professionals on the other side, because they exactly knew what we want. We knew that how to get the work done out of them. So it's an opportunity that goes beyond event agencies. There are so many parallel work that is happening where the skill set of an event professional is needed. So be it sports venues, be it malls, be it government, be it corporates, or some theaters, international places where somebody can go and get employed. So a lot of stuff is there, which just takes the scope out of an event agency and offers it to the other industries as well.
If I may actually just, just add to what Saurabh said also is, it's not just about having a conventional job at an event agency, right? In our industry today, there's immense opportunity. Like we discussed earlier, if you're somebody who loves to write, you could just end up being a script writer for awards, for conferences, for regular corporate events that an event agency would hire you independently as an independent resource or a consultant. And that's just the beginning. So it's everything from content writing to being able to make some, insane PowerPoint presentations. Maybe you like to dabble in visuals or in videos and making films, which means pretty much every event has a film that's made prior or made after, time-lapse videos. It could be anything. You could be a digital expert. So literally the opportunity is so vast and so varied at this point.
So I have one question from one of our members in the audience. They say that, every institute promises practical learning and going on events and doing a live experience. How important is classroom learning versus practical learning? What works best or what doesn't? This is for both of you. I mean, both of you could answer this.
Yeah, I'll take that too. I'll start with that if you want.
Go.
So it's, there is no one formula. Both go hand in hand. You just can't learn in classrooms and not execute that on ground. What classroom learning does for you is it equips you, right? When you learn how to make checklists, when you learn how to make presentations, all of that is equipping you as a professional to do better. But when you're on ground, eventually all events lies around execution, and that's the kick that you get when whatever you've planned in the last 6 months, when you see that coming alive in front of your own eyes, it's a different feeling, and that's what inspires you to come back the next day and plan one more event. One day you're doing a wedding, one day you're doing a launch for BMW, one day you're doing a big festival. Every day is a new day. So it's actually a combination of both. If you just good at paper, but you can't get stuff done on ground, it won't work. So you should look at it in a way that classroom learning equips you to do what best you can do on ground. So it goes hand in hand, is what I feel.
You can't pick one over the other. It's about both of it coming together. You can't just be all about looking great on paper.
But I just want to add to what Saurabh and Subhu was saying in terms of practical learning as well as classroom learning. The fact of the matter is that the classroom teaches you the methods that will be best practices that you will take on to the field. So technically, when you take those best practices, you go to the field and you actually see them being implemented or not being implemented. That is the actual completion of the learning curve, which enables you to understand this is the exact way of doing something or not doing something. So that is what you really need to do. There is a question from Rachit. We are just running about, we have about 10 more minutes. I have worked with a production house of my college for dramatics. What more can be there for me in the future? You guys want to answer this, or can I take this?
Yeah, you can take this if you want.
So Rachit, theater is a huge game changer as far as entertainment is concerned. Today, more and more people are involved in, going and seeing theater in various ways. In fact, a very good friend and one of our panelists a week back, Roshan, has actually used this time of lockdown to create his own online theater. And he has produced an online play, which is now going great guns. In fact, he has a show happening today, which is a paid show in the time when people are not having, money or any revenue coming in. He's actually made a revenue opportunity out of a play. So he has produced an online play. So theater and events, or anything that is live or which has an opportunity to go live, interact with people, engage people, communicate with people, will be a revenue earner, will be a monetization opportunity. It's how you position it, more importantly, what everyone on this panel should understand is that the business of events or the business of experiential is all about touching someone's heart, making someone feel, and inspiring someone's mind. As long as you can do those things in any form, you will be actually be able to create monetization or revenue out of it. So I hope that answers your question, Rachit. There's a question from Danish, which says, what sort of specific talent or knowledge do we understand, do we need to understand in event management, especially when it comes to live concerts, sports, or weddings? Any specific tips? Saurabh?
So, like you were saying, the industry is so dynamic that every day you're doing something new. So how much ever knowledge you can learn for anything that will work. Tomorrow you might be doing an event for an automobile industry. If you understand that industry, that works best for you. You planning a sporting event for a state, for a big opening ceremony. Again, if you understand those things, why are they doing it? All of that, what works, what is the audience that is looking at the event. Hence, you plan the entertainment, you plan the content around it. So any of these things that you learn will always help you in executing any of these events that you do, be it a wedding, be it a small sport, or be it any corporate event. So don't restrict the learning to saying, if I need to do these things, I will only want to learn about that. Any learning can get adapted to any kind of event that you do.
That brings me to one more question, which says that, today there are current set of event managers, maybe 2 years, 3 years into the profession, who are constantly doing and things out there, and who are actually learning on the job. But do you think there is a need for continuous learning and knowledge upgradation, especially in the current context that we are? And do you feel that agencies need to invest in continuous learning with graded programs to enable skill upgradation? How do you think this relationship between agency and schools as a thriving ecosystem needs to work out? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so actually, it's very, very relevant, especially in where we are now. The fact is, even as agencies, we're constantly reinventing the way that we think of solutions, the way we think of ideas, the way we come up with plans for clients right now. So I think it's very appropriate, and I think just the fact that you can go to school and learn it just makes it, I think, like more accelerated growth. What we would take a little longer to learn, you could probably learn faster in college. But it's about filling those gaps, and especially with what you're offering right now.
I think it's a collaborative effort. Event schools, event agencies, they need to continuously be engaged. Learning should not only be for students, till today, it's a famous saying that learning never stops at any stage of your life. Till today, now, since the entire environment around us is changing, we are learning how to do virtual events. So we are still learning, even at our levels, we are still learning. So that needs to continuously be on, how the world changes, new stuff that can come in. That day there was one discussion where saying a lot of people want to learn technicals. Even they're currently working 6-7 years into the industry. You always have experts, like you'll have a light designer who'll come and design stuff for you. You'll have a sound engineer who'll come and plan sound for you. But what if as a production person, I also want to learn that? So is there an opportunity in any school where I can go and just learn technicals? So that is where this thing, it has to go hand in hand. It has to be a collaborative effort. And the more and more training, learning happen, you will always churn out better talent in the industry, not only at the fresher level, but even at experience level.
Okay. So what are the key sunrise industries in the business today, given the current scenario? What do you think will hold good for the future? According to me, every one of them is a sunrise industry within our scope of events that we do. But your thoughts, both of you, on this? What do you think are the dark horses that will reach the finish line better?
So, the truth is, while physical events seem like a very distant possibility at the moment, nothing is going to take away the charm that a physical event can really offer you. So no matter what happens for the next couple of months, quarter, maybe up until early next year, watching a festival on ground with 20 other people that are trying to feel the same energy as you is never going to be replaced by what you can see online. that looks just as great. So I think in the immediate future, like I'm not going to say too far down the road, but in the immediate future, what is going to be the thing that drives everybody ahead is going to be literally virtual events in any form, hybrid, virtual, yeah, but physical events will never run out of fashion, ever. Nothing can replace that passion, that energy, that excitement that you get when you're on ground seeing something.
Saurabh, your thoughts. The 5 sunrise industries you think will rock and roll in 2021?
Within the event space, or you're saying general
Within the
industry?
event space, of course.
Within the, see, weddings is something that will never go. It's whatever happens, even if it's an economic recession, people have money to spend on weddings. So
and they have to get married.
Yeah, they have to get married, and whatever things, it's a middle class value, right? All of us have. कुछ भी करो, शादी के लिए बचा के रखना है. So even if whatever happens, people have money to spend on weddings, so that will never die. Sports events is any which is big on the rise, even if before this. So that will always continue. There are a lot of global stuff that happens. So every country is going through a different phase right now. But the countries that revive back faster, events will start happening there. Corporate events will take a little, its own phase of going up and down. If you're planning events for e-commerce industries, you're planning events for IT industries, you will always, or tech companies, you will continuously be doing that. Yes, some of the industries may take a little slow time because of what's happening currently, but it will bounce back in a while. So, IP curation, plan your own event, think of an idea that can, so it's, we always say, right, what is the best way to sell an event? Get an idea where a consumer wants to come to that idea. Get them to come to your own idea. You will always have a winning combination. So that's the reason. So IP curation, branded content in IP will always be there. So some of these things will never, it's just a matter of a certain time, but we are event professionals. We're never going to go anywhere. We're going to bounce back like big time. And trust me, there will be a time where people, it's human, right? We cannot be without meeting people. So when it all comes back into normal, there will be so much of events that will happen that, trust me, we won't be able to manage it. We'll need lots of people to come and do
because
that.
People are not going to stop eating at restaurants. People are not going to stop going to movies. People are not going to stop going to malls to buy things for themselves. So socializing is a part of life. Man is a social animal. And the need to connect is always going to be there. So we are all waiting for this thing to go, and I'm sure there are better days ahead. It's all about playing it safe, doing the right things, and following the norms to actually build a better community. So my honest advice to anyone on this forum right now is that when you're thinking events, think for the future of about building communities. Think about how you can create a forum of people with like-minded thoughts, and you can keep engaging them. So the moment you create this community, you don't actually need to go out there and pitch for work, because these communities will keep coming back to you with their needs. And that is how you'll keep evolving and creating amazing kind of content and work. So that's what you all need to aspire for if you're looking at getting into the experiential business or getting into the event management business. And that's the future trend. That's the real game changer as far as the platform is concerned. It's been an amazing hour, guys. I can't thank you both enough for this. Saurabh,
absolutely
Subbu,
our pleasure.
Absolutely wonderful to have you both here. I wish you both great success in whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you physically on the other side on campus. In fact, I want to announce here that while Saurabh was talking about IPs and IP curation, we have for next Friday a very, very interesting speaker. This is Mr. Deepak Chaudhary, who's supposed to be the king of IPs in the business today.
No.
So do tune in. It's going to be same time on next Friday. And we are going to talk to him a whole lot about what is the evolving careers in the IP business. We're also going to talk to him about education and its impact on the overall business management in the world specifically. In fact, if for your information, Deepak was the first founders of one of the first event schools in the country. So it would be interesting to chat with him on his journey and talk about, how you could actually get into this business and curate something for yourself and become an entrepreneur from day one, the day you finish your event career. So that's the conversation. But till then, I leave you with these two wonderful thoughts by these two wonderful people. So Saurabh said that passion is the biggest driver that is required. You need to have that sparkle in your eye if you want to get there. And I already see it in Saurabh's eyes. So that's why he's been there. And Subhu, of course, thank you so much today for being here. The kind of body of work that you've created with 70 is truly commendable. We look forward to seeing more of that stuff online and offline. And we look forward to having you again on the campus to teach our students. So thank you so much for taking time today. If you have any more questions or any more information, you could write to us.